We're back for another episode of the Pittsburgh Sports Castle Podcast. At the time of recording, it is September 30th, but by the time you're listening to this, it'll be October 1st. It's hard to believe that with COVID and everything going on in the world, that it is already going to be October. Just absolutely mind-blowing. I'm your host. I'm Rachael Kriger. I'm not alone tonight. Today I have, let's hope I can say your name correctly again, AJ Menendez.
Yes. Great to be back.
Glad to have you back. We got a lot of good stuff going on tonight. It's going to be a little bit of a hectic night. I was telling AJ off air. We were going to have Cody Flavel tonight, but he is umpiring a game. So best of luck to him. I hope he doesn't get hit with any loose baseballs at all. I was telling him before we hit the record button, I'm covering an NWSL game tonight. So tonight is going to be a little hectic. So if there's a couple longer pauses, just forgive me. I'm juggling 50,000 things right now, but we're still fitting in a podcast. I want to give listeners an update real quick too before we get into our first topic. I had mentioned on our last podcast that we are going to have a special guest come on from the Riverhounds sometime soon, and while we're still getting the actual recording date confirmed, I can tell you all that we are going to have Riverhounds defender Ryan James on the podcast soon to just talk about the season, talk about Bob Lilly, talk about the preparation that they are planning for the playoffs, all kinds of good stuff. So that's going to be happening soon. I would say at least by the second week of October, we are going to have that out. A huge shout out to Tony Picardi, the Riverhounds media guy, for just being, first off, just a genuinely great human being. He is the easiest guy that I've ever had to work with, and just the most down-to-earth, sweetest person I've ever had the pleasure of knowing, and I just appreciate him for getting all of this set up in a very crazy year. So, Tony, I don't know if you listen to this, but if you do, I thank you tremendously. So, AJ, before we get into Steelers stuff, we got to talk about the Riverhounds. We mentioned the last time that they had punched their ticket to the USL Championship playoffs, but we just learned recently that the mighty can indeed fall. The Riverhounds lost 1-0 to Hartford at home last weekend. If you follow Rabbi Mark Goodman on Twitter, evidently Bob Lilly had a 16 to 20 minute long chewing out of the players on the field. I am sure that would have looked different if there were fans allowed in attendance. He might have went to the locker room, but it just shows to me that is the standard. They are being held to a very high standard by Bob Lilly. The Riverhounds cannot get comfortable, because getting comfortable and complacent like they have been kind of performing in these last two games means that their spot, they're already going to the playoffs. Their ticket is punched, but they could potentially lose the number one seeding, and I'll get into that in a minute. But a one loss to Hartford, not the greatest thing to happen. The final regular season match happens this Saturday, October 3rd, against the Philadelphia Union 2, a team that is lower on the table, but as we've seen, anything can happen. As mentioned, Pittsburgh could lose their number one seed, although they have achieved a spot in the playoffs. Hartford has 2 games left. At time of recording now, they have 1 game left. They just won 3-2 against the Bethlehem Steel off a very lucky 90th minute goal from Danny Barrera. They also had goals scored pretty early on by Mads Jorgensen and Alex Lara, but Bethlehem still could not hold on, and Hartford Athletic takes 3 points. They take the win, and now in Group F, Hartford Athletic right now is sitting on top of Group F with 32 points, with Pittsburgh in second place at 31 points. Both are in a lock for the playoffs, but that number one seed means that you could get a home field advantage. So here's what needs to happen, folks. Pittsburgh needs to win, or they need to let me backtrack. Pittsburgh needs to win to get that number 1 seed, and then Hartford has to either draw or lose in their final match. Also, Pittsburgh can make it through with a draw and a Hartford loss because they have a much higher goal differential, 28-5. So 2 situations, 2 scenarios. Pittsburgh either needs a win and tied with that win, a Hartford draw and a loss, or Pittsburgh needs a draw and then they need to hope and pray that Hartford Athletic loses to Red Bull New York on Sunday. So Saturday is going to be a pretty anxiety-filled night for the Riverhounds. They're going to have to wait until Sunday to figure out what the final seeding and what the final standings in Group F are going to look like. Either way, they make the playoffs. But what's up for grabs is a home playoff game. And of course, as we know, that is something that Bob Lilly and the Pittsburgh Riverhounds want. And I just want to read this quote from the loss to Hartford Athletic recently. Bob Lilly had said, "I think we're going to have to do some soul searching this week to get back our hunger, to get back on top of things here. We didn't start that well against Loudoun. We didn't start that well tonight against Hartford. So I think we also have to make sure we start games better moving forward." One positive for the Riverhounds, though, on a housekeeping note, is that Kennardo Forbes is back. He was dealing with a 4 to 6 week injury. That injury has taken probably about 4 weeks to heal up, and he was able to get some minutes against Hartford, so it's good to have the captain back. So just to recap, Pittsburgh going to the playoffs, but they definitely need a little bit of help. They need a win, they need a draw. The scenario has been drawn up, and we will post it also in the WordPress article on our site. Either way, they'll go to the playoffs, and once the format is released, we will be able to share that out with everyone. But let's move on to our other team. We're going to be talking a lot about the Steelers again tonight because Pirates are done. There's no baseball playoffs for them. And in the words of Cody, that's the only mention that we will be making of them tonight, hopefully. Congratulations to the Tampa Bay Lightning for winning the NHL Stanley Cup, but now all eyes are on the Riverhounds and the Steelers, and we're going to turn our focus to the Steelers, who are 3-0 after starting last season at 0-3, so it's an improvement. And first and foremost, AJ, I just want to get your opinion on the last 3 games in general, what you think the team looks like, and just what your thoughts are so far in 2020.
The defense is still good. I love how the offense has improved from last season so far. With Ben back, you could tell that they're playing with a lot more passion than they did last season.
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely a lot of passion going on here with the Steelers. I think that they definitely look better. That defense is pretty hard to compete with, right? It's really good to see. Any thoughts so far on Ben Roethlisberger and what he's looked like?
He's looked good. Like he's barely been making any turnovers, which is good. He's been leading to the team to score, which is perfect. That's all I can ask for. No turnovers, more just scoring.
Yeah, for sure. All good stuff. And one person I really want to talk about, I just actually wrote a story about him for the site. You can find it on PittsburghSportsCastle.com is Chase Claypool. What do you like about him, AJ? Why do you think he fits so well into the Steelers system?
He's, his height, he can get any deep balls, and especially in the end zone, he can, bully the defensive backs because they are not his height. So it'll be much easier for him to catch, balls over them.
He reminds me height-wise of Martavis Bryant, and that's something I wrote about. Hopefully he doesn't have the off-field issues that Martavis Bryant had. Seems like he's a young man with a good head on his shoulders. But the height, definitely, he's like Martavis Bryant in that way. And I think the really cool thing about having Chase Claypool is that, when people see height on a wide receiver, Juju Smith-Schuster's tall too. So you've got a lot of people flanking him, right? And then when you put Chase Claypool in, now you're kind of splitting the defenders to have to cover him as well. So it gives Juju more space to work with. It gives Chase Claypool more space to work with. I just think it works out well for the two of them. What do you think?
Yeah, it's not Juju getting double teamed like last season. It's defenders are being split up. Even with James Washington, you have a lot of defenders on him. I think it's just like well balanced for the offense.
Yeah, another wide receiver to talk about, Deontay Johnson. He's been pretty good in these first, really 2 games, because he had that head injury pretty early on in the third game against the Houston Texans. Um, so now I got to pose a question to you with the Deontay Johnson injury. If he's out against Tennessee and against Philadelphia, do you think we'll see more of Chase Claypool or James
Abs-
Washington?
I think we'll see equally both. I think equal amount of both because what I noticed from Ben, he's not throwing to just one receiver. He's splitting it, to Ebron, to Smith Schuster, to Washington and Claypool. It's not just not any one specific receiver. So I think their philosophy, they're going to split the passes toward each receiver.
Yeah, I think that's a good call. I think that now that he has the weapons to work with, I think Ben's going to utilize it for sure. After missing last season, he's definitely going to want to use his weapons for sure. Um, so the offensive line, there's been some injuries with Zach Banner and David DeCastro isn't quite at 100%, but he's definitely getting there. What do you think about how their performance has been in regard to keeping Ben off of the ground and really helping the running backs too?
I mean, you haven't noticed that we're missing, some of our best offensive linemen. They've kept up, the play. Like if you're walking, you can't notice that. Oh, we have some holes. They've done a very good job at protecting Ben and protecting our running backs.
Yeah, for sure. I think the tight ends have definitely been helping too. And there was a competition there between Eric Ebron and Vance McDonald. And clearly it looks like Ebron has won. He had that really nice touchdown pass reception against the Texans. What have you liked from Ebron?
I love it when you throw a bottom, he can catch it. Like Vance, he's more. I like more of him in the blocking situations, but when it comes to receiving, I'll take Ebron any day of the week.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on there. Pretty much in full agreement. Excuse me. Another article that was written on our site was from our friend Shailene Hickson. She wrote about Benny Snell Jr. and James Conner, and both have been utilized extremely well by the Steelers. It seems like Conner is that starter at running back right now. In your perfect world, AJ, who is the starter, and can you give me a reason why?
Benny Snell, easily. You know, both are talented, but I can trust Snell to be on the field, all the time, as he is durable.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think, a healthy James Conner is a good James Conner, right? And I feel like he's one of those players that when he's on, he is really on. But when he's off, it's not good. It's just downright bad. So I'm hoping that he can, keep some consistency with playing well. But having Benny Snell Jr. is such a great option. He is a very young, very talented running back. Any other thoughts on the offense so far?
It's been smooth sailing with them. They've done their job. That's all I can ask for.
a man of simple words, but strong enough to really prove that the Steelers are doing well. Let's switch over to the defense. Would you agree with me that TJ Watt is already an early candidate for Defensive Player of the Year?
Absolutely.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
All right. If he's not getting a lot of tackles, he's putting the pressure on the quarterback. He can put him anywhere on the field, and he will shine. He can rush the quarterback and he could defend the run. He does everything you can ask for.
Yeah, for sure. We had the Watt family reunion this past weekend. The brothers Derek and TJ on the Steelers and JJ, of course, on the Houston Texans. Obviously, Steelers get the win. They get the upper hand on JJ Watt. What did you think of the matchup between, like, being able to watch two very good Watt brothers? Obviously, JJ is a beast on defense as well as TJ. But who do you think kind of has the, I guess, upper hand when it comes to their defensive play? Like, who do you think is just looks better this season?
TJ Watt, in my opinion, is JJ Watt's getting up there, and he's had problems with injury, and when compared to his brother is just, you can tell he's more fresh. You can tell that he has no rust. He can handle anything.
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree with that. I think that, first off, I just want to give a PSA to everyone saying that JJ Watt should get traded to the Pittsburgh Steelers. If he's getting traded anywhere, folks, he's going to Chicago because his incredibly talented wife, Kalia Watt, is playing for the Chicago Red Stars in the National Women's Soccer League. So if he's going anywhere, folks, he is following Mrs. Watt to Chicago. I don't see him coming to Pittsburgh anytime soon. Although that would be great. I don't think it is in the cards. But yeah, let's move on from the Watt brothers for a minute and talk about the secondary. I mean, they were so good last year, and the relationship now between Mike Hilton and Joe Hayden and all these guys here in the secondary is just so good. Who's your favorite right now in the secondary? Why, and what do you think of the secondary overall?
Mike Hilton, because he's rarely making mistakes out there. If a receiver catches the ball, he will make a tackle. He will not have any missed tackles, and that's one of the things that's problem with some defensive backs, that they always have a missed tackle, and you'll never see that from Mike Hilton.
Mike Hilton is one of those guys that just goes for it no matter what. He's like an all-in defender. He's going to give you everything that he has. He's not going to, for lack of better phrase, just have it done half-baked. He's going to go all out and just really, really put some pressure on these opposing offenses. I really like him. I think he's really good. I think having Sean Davis back as kind of a rotation player is definitely going to help the Steelers. Any other players that really stand out to you on the defense?
Bud Dupree has been phenomenal this season. You can tell by the
and he's playing in a contract year.
Yep. Yeah, his feet are to the fire. You could tell that he wants, he's playing for something bigger. So
he's definitely playing to stay on the Steelers, I think. And then another guy that is doing really well this season, he had that rough season about 2 years ago, but coming back now, Chris Boswell, he has 5 of 5 field goal attempts converted, and he has just only missed 1 extra point. Any thoughts on the special teams along with new punter Colquitt?
No, I'm just loving what Boswell was doing. A few seasons ago, he was missing almost everything. He couldn't kick it from probably 20 yards out. I just love the improvement he's made over the past 2 seasons, leading up to now.
Yeah, I think I told Cody one of my favorite things about Chris Boswell when he was struggling was the Steelers were able to call in former kicker Sean Sweezum, and he was able to kind of go through field goal 101 with Chris Boswell, and they were able to get him back on the right track. So really cool to have just that type of person in Sean Sweezum come back and help the younger player, Chris Boswell. And Boswell has done well this year, and they count on him. I mean, look at the Tennessee Titans and how much they've relied on Steven Gostkowski, a former kicker for the New England Patriots. I think that the more consistent that your kicker can be, the better. And Boswell has been pretty consistent this year. So AJ, we had some news today about the Steelers' opponent for Week 4 is supposed to be the Tennessee Titans, and there have been some positive COVID-19 tests on the staff and player-wise. And now they have the game on Sunday is being moved. They don't know if they're playing Monday. They don't know if they're playing Tuesday. That's what the NFL is hoping for. Just for me personally, it doesn't make sense because you're supposed to have 14 days of quarantining. And last time I checked, that's not 14 days of quarantining. So I don't understand what the NFL is trying to do. I understand, schedules are finicky, and with 32 teams, it's definitely hard to kind of change everything around. But when it comes to COVID, I think rules are rules and they need to be followed. But that's my 2 cents on that. But either way, if the Steelers somehow have off this week in Week 5, they play against the Philadelphia Eagles in a Pennsylvania rivalry match. Let's talk about Tennessee first. On paper, it kind of seems like it's going to be an easy win. Tennessee has really had to rely on kicker Steven Gostkowski to kind of get them out of losing games. So just what are your thoughts on the Titans, and what do you expect to see? The big question is if the Steelers play them.
Obviously, what about them is their running back, Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry has been unstoppable. So I think he's the biggest threat to Steelers. And if they take care of him, I think it'll be an easy win for sure.
Yeah, I think so too. What about the Philadelphia Eagles? What are you looking for there?
See, they're in a tough spot. They are supposed to be a good team, but they just haven't got it rolling. Carson Wentz has been underperforming when he's supposed to be a good quarterback. It's surprising to see them, underperform this much.
Crazy to think that they let go of Nick Foles, huh?
Yeah, but he's doing well in Chicago.
Yeah, he's got that starting job right now, it seems. Any final thoughts on the Steelers here, AJ?
I think these next 2 matchups are going to be pretty easy for them, and I think we're probably going to be the only undefeated team left in the NFL.
There are 7, correct? There are 7 undefeated teams right now. That sounds right. We'll go with 7, and right now one of them is the Steelers, and honestly, there's still a giant question mark to if the Steelers and Titans are going to play this week. So that is certainly something to keep in mind. So to kind of go through the schedule this weekend, folks. Right now, the Steelers don't know if they're playing on Monday or Tuesday. It's definitely not happening on Sunday. It could be moved to one of those days. And on Saturday, October 3rd, the Riverhounds are in their last home match against Philadelphia Union 2. A win would be the most preferable thing. A draw could suffice as long as Hartford loses. So that's pretty much it for our show tonight. Don't forget that you can follow us on Twitter at PGH Sports Castle. Obviously, a lot of great stuff on our site just PittsburghSportsCastle.com. We've got some good stuff on there. Shailene Hickson wrote about Benny Snell and James Conner. I wrote about Chase Claypool. Shailene is going to have another story, I think, coming Thursday or Friday. So be on the lookout for that. Cody had wrote today about his team awards for the Pittsburgh Pirates. So be sure to check that out. Just a lot of good stuff. So also be sure to follow AJ on Twitter at AMRocks2002. You can follow me at Rachael Kriger. And then Cody has a third-party platform that he uses to really share a lot of our stuff and just his own stuff. It's Let's Talk Pitt with just one T. Let's Talk PIT. Listeners, we're on all major platforms, including Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Be sure to check us out by searching our name. We're also on Google Podcasts, Deezer, Podcast Addict, Podchaser, and of course Spreaker, where we record our shows. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the Pittsburgh Sports Castle podcast. Your feedback is very important to us, and any reviews posted will help make the podcast more visible to listeners. And of course, listeners, if you have any idea for podcast prompts and topics, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to members of our team and our Pittsburgh Sports Castle Twitter to send some ideas along. Thank you for joining us, folks, and we will see you next time as we flip the script over to October. Stay safe, everyone.